Introducing NASM One, NASM's ultimate membership program. Unlock access to everything your fitness career needs to succeed. Unlimited CEUs, free courses, access to our premium app, and exclusive discounts, all for $35 a month. NASM One is best-in-class tools, cutting-edge certifications, confidence in your craft, and everything you do as a personal trainer made easy, so we can achieve our greatest goals together as one.
You're listening to Random Fit with hosts Wendy Batts and Ken Miller, winner of a Gold Markham Award for Digital Media.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Random Fit with myself, Wendy Batts, and friend and co-host Ken Miller. Ken, you know what? Today's topic, I think, is super important because if we look at the obesity rates in this world, we have more gyms, but we're still seeing those rates on the rise. So today's topic is about what? Moving to succeed.
Yeah. And moving to succeed for this episode of Random Fit, what we are talking about is trying to find more or different ways to add activity into your day by way of your commute. And I'll share, Wendy, one of the clients I have that I work with after work hours, right? So 5 o'clock, he's on that last ferry over from San Francisco over to the East Bay. And what he does is he has one of those foldable bikes. I don't know if you've ever seen. He has a foldable bike, which is really, I mean, there's a lot on the market.
Welcome to California, people.
Yeah. You're not doing that in Atlanta.
In Atlanta, I have yet to see it. Like, the scooters that are on every corner, yes, but foldable bike, no.
Well, I have clients that do take the ferry over instead of taking the BART, which is our train, our little subway train, our version of it here. But I'll have those clients that ride their bikes. But my one client, he has a foldable bike. So he'll ride it from the ferry. And I think it's like 2-3 miles from the ferry station to my facility. And he'll walk in, he'll have his little backpack, and then he'll have his foldable bike, picks it up, and it's just, 20 something pounds, and he'll bring that in. But it stores what he doesn't have to worry about locking it up. He doesn't have to worry about bringing it to, storing it in a closet or one of those bike security boxes.
Ken.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Once everything's locked in place, but all to the point of he is somebody who has taken on and embraced the idea of commuting. He's accessorized it, of course, with that foldable bike, but he has taken advantage of public transit. So he's taking the ferry over, but from his house to the ferry, he rides a bike. He gets on the ferry. And once he gets to the other side, then he's on his bike again from where the ferry lets off to his office, which is, I think, another 1.5 miles. So he is adding another 3 miles each way in physical activity, which was really great when we were trying to find out, okay, well, how can we accelerate results? How can we accelerate your conditioning? How can we accelerate, managing your daily activity? Because if you sit behind the computer all day long, he's in the tech industry, if you sit behind the computer all day long, the question is, when are you going to move? When are you going to get out there? When are you going to do things? And this adds, instead of him getting in his car, getting out of his car when he gets there, and then sitting behind the computer, he has these intermittent breaks through the day, in the beginning and at the end of the day, where he's adding activity. So adding activity through through finding an alternative way to commute from home to work outside of just getting in the car and parking and going. For some of us, it's not an option, right? Or you have to get up at 4 a.m. to take the first bus to where you're going to go. But, it doesn't fit into a lot of schedules.
I know it's interesting listening to your stories in comparison to mine. I live in Atlanta. We don't have a ferry. We have to just sit on the highways and just pray that we are not going to hit traffic in, well, rush hour. It seems like rush hour is more like rush hours. If you don't leave 1 or 2 hours prior to your appointment, especially if it's in the 8 to 5, work hour time periods, you are in big trouble because you will be very late. And so, one of the reasons we wanted to talk about really thinking about Random Fit, we want people to become more active. Active commuting is one thing that I think is extremely important. And number one reason, guys, it seems like we all know this, but I mean, think about your physical health and what getting up and moving, how many calories you're burning. A little bit of something's better than a whole lot of nothing. That's a Rick Ritchie comment that we always say. And so if you know that you're going to be sitting at your desk all day, you know that you're going to be in meetings, you're going to have a sit down lunch where you can't get up and do anything active, then what are ways that you can start to incorporate things to get your, cardiovascular health? Obviously, we're going to get our heart rate up if you're doing some sort of activity, commuting to and from. You're also going to, like we said, burn calories. And so that's going to help you maintain your weight. And so that's obviously going to be extremely important. We're also going to try to hopefully loosen up some muscles after sitting for a long period of time. If you go for if you're walking home or doing something like that, then you're at least not in that hip flex position. Now, if you're biking, you are, but at least you are getting some blood flow through your muscles that have been inactive for most of the day. So number one, it improves your health. So or physical health. So why wouldn't we want to try to find ways? But like I said, in Atlanta, it's not always easy. So we do have our subways called the MARTA. And so you can get on the MARTA where you can just, go to and from different places very, very quickly. Most of us don't use the MARTA. We'll ride it, or not most, but some of us, like myself, I don't use the MARTA very often. And so I'm stuck in my car.
Have you ever been to Seattle, Wendy?
I have.
Yeah, that is a big active commuter town.
Oh my goodness.
Right?
In Colorado too.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, if you have it available and it's very, very, if it's supported by your city and they've done a great job to provide that infrastructure, like Seattle, you're riding that example of taking the ferry over. That's going island to island, up the sound, around the sound. It's there.
Oh, when I said Colorado, I thought you meant on the active standpoint. I was like, when I went to Colorado, that's when I saw people be very active. They're literally commuting, going everywhere, utilizing their body and not like vehicles. And I found it absolutely fascinating. And when you look at some of the statistics, Colorado is still one of the most healthiest areas in all the nation because they move.
Yep. And that's an example of what infrastructure does for you. So something to talk, go to your local city council meeting and see what you can do to improve. And this is something that's been done here in Alameda, where I live. They've put, 3 of the major streets going, I think it's east to west, they've built in bike lanes. Now, at the sacrifice of a car lane, they've changed the lines around to where now it's just you have a dedicated bike lane, which, again, just with people that I know directly, they've been taking advantage of those bike lanes and using it for what they're for. They're biking to the BART station, they're biking to the ferry, and they're doing that to and from work. So definitely great feedback as far as how they feel at the end of the day, because whatever their day wound up being, they were able to blow off some steam. Sometimes that'll affect how fast it's like, man, whatever, they're just trucking, they'll bike a little harder, they'll be able to blow off some steam. So from the mental side of things, if you think about the return home, so nothing's happened to you yet on your commute to work, right? Usually everybody starts off with a pretty okay morning, but then once the stresses of the day have built up, that commute home, especially if you have an active commute home, that's a great time to just decompress, let it all out. If you've got a longer bike ride, definitely more time for you to blow off that steam and get a little bit of movement. So from the mental side of things, that's something that, a buddy of mine who walks to where he lives, his stop for the BART station, it gives him a little bit of time he doesn't have to battle traffic because he's sitting there as a passenger. He has time to decompress, listen to his podcast or whatever he's doing to mentally just kind of decompress and unload. So by the time he gets home, he's got his beautiful family that now he can be present. So from a mental side, he has some outlet. He has, I believe, 20. I mean, he's fortunate enough to live a 20-minute walk away from the train station from where he is. So from that mental side, he's able to just leave it on the train, leave it at work. So when he is with his family, he's there, he's present, and things aren't bogging him down.
Well, today on Random Fit, we're talking about actually moving to succeed, or to move to succeed. And it's really about being, what are ways that you can commute to and from? And we're talking a lot about work, but I'll tell you, I think it's also important to say, some people, like for me, I'm not going to put a bike helmet on. I'm not going to be in a dress, and I'm not going to hop on a bike, especially when I have an important meeting, and I'm going to bike my way to work because I'm going to be a hot, sweaty mess, and my hair is going to look like a mess. And it's just not going to be good for anyone. However, it is something where, we live 2 miles from the gym. And so instead of getting in the car, we may run to the gym, do a workout, and then run back. So I've done a 4-mile run, 2 and 2, my hour workout, and then I'm able to do whatever I want to do. And I didn't have to get behind the wheel. So when we're talking a lot about work and getting to and from, think about different things that you can do or different places that you can go that don't involve you getting into a car. And I think it's also important, Ken, when you're talking about like kind of the mental side of it, mental well-being is a big thing that you're reading when you're talking about active commuting, because that's when they say it's beneficial for your mind, that's going to help trigger and release those endorphins that you need to basically increase your mood. They're a natural mood lifter. So like you said, it kind of puts you in a different state of mind, and it kind of helps like enhance your feelings of just whatever those feelings are at that moment. And then it kind of gets you through some of those stressors that you might have, that you're experiencing, where you don't take time to kind of clear your mind before you go into whatever else you're doing. So there is a lot of positive benefit, and it's also going to help to reduce that mental fatigue, because I know if you're in meetings all day, you're just tired. You're just mentally tired. And this requires, especially if you're going for a walk or you're going for a bike, even if you're just wanting to go out with your family after dinner just to get moving, that's one of the really positive benefits that just getting outside and going for a walk or a bike can do for you.
Yep. And I'm a 20-minute walk from my facility where I train my clients. So the
are you worried about your hair?
Am I? No, not like you are. So I just got to work on, just put on some sunblock, and I'm good to go. But to that point, to walk and to bike, that definitely takes a lot more time than it takes to just get in the car, turn it on, and get to where you're going. So from a active commuting standpoint, you do have to spend more time commuting, but there are the benefits of taking that time for all the things that you listed off, Wendy. But for me, if I have the time, if I don't have to wash gym towels and things like that, and I could just walk, don't have to carry anything, unless I'm rucking, which is something else that I'll kind of challenge myself during my walk. But it does take 20 minutes there, 20 minutes back. So I have to be able to budget. If I don't have to record a podcast, write a blog post or something like that, then as long as I budget the time, that's no problem. I can get the benefits of it. And that's something my clients have definitely worked into their day. And a lot of my clients actually live near the facility, and I say, hey, build in that commute time, and we'll consider that your warm up, and that commute time back home, that'll be your warm down once we're done with our workout. So
you're warm down. I love it.
Huh?
You're warm down. That could be your warm down.
You're warm down. Just walk slower on the way home.
Well, another one that I thought was hilarious, because obviously when you sent this on the list, so Ken and I, when we work on these, just so you know, like he'll come up with some different things. I come up for some different things. We have big discussions about what we want to talk about, and then we integrate our stuff together. But one of the first ones that Ken had on his list was that it's cost effective. And if you live in California, how expensive gas is. And so I'm sure that's why you had it number one on your list. But you do want to think about the cost of fuel, the cost of parking your car, any kind of transportation. If you can go, walk or bike or do something, we've talked about the physical benefits of it, to your health. We've also talked about, the mental benefits. Obviously, there's a huge environmental benefit because you're, less likely to think about less cars on the road. It's better for the planet. We all know that. But when you're thinking about cost, especially if you're on a financial budget, or it seems like gas keeps going up right now, and it's maybe something to consider.
It's ridiculous. Stop reminding me of how expensive. Well, to that same commute, that I think it's $11 one way for that ferry ride. Well, to take a car into the city, from the East Bay into San Francisco, excuse me, that's a $7 toll. And then depending on if you get the early bird special at the parking lot, that's
Oh my gosh.
30
I just can't.
$30 for the day. So already you're $37. Whereas if you had the ferry ride, then that's $22. Again, that's what I last remember, but those numbers sound right to me. But that's also the time that you're stuck in traffic. If you have a regular 9 to 5, you're in traffic coming in and you're in traffic coming out, on top of the fuel costs that it takes for you to do that. So the cost side of things definitely are not in your favor if you're a car commuter. But the other thing that I'll say is, depending on your company, sometimes they will subsidize public transit. So they'll give you a bus pass, or they'll give you credits, or they'll give you money towards your bus pass. So depending on the company, some of them are definitely active commuter supporting. So from that side of things, see what your company has to offer. So not saying you're making money, but it'll cost you a lot less money to take public transportation from that standpoint. So if we're talking about costs and savings, there's that. But the other part of it is, there are some parts of, and every city has it, that you don't want to park your car in certain places. So there's that. So to put your car in that environment,
I think, that kind of brings us into the second portion of our podcast. Now that we're getting into, we know the benefits. And like I said, it's some of this it should be a reminder. We all know that we need to get up, we need to move more, eat less, do all of that in order to really maintain the fitness journey and not just find the destination and then call it a day. So what can you do to better your health over time? Well, then it was like, well, okay, we've got all this information, and the number one thing is, okay, well, I know it, but like, how do I get started? What should I do first? And first and foremost, if you want to try something new, especially with, it's a new year coming up, if you want to make some changes, think about trying to be more active in your commute with your body. What can you do actively to get from one place, so point A to point B? But first, you need to map out your route, or your route, depending on where you live. And I think that's extremely important, because if my phone goes dead, I am in trouble, and I will end up in California versus right down the street, because I have no idea where I'm going, and I am terrible with directions. And so I think it's really important that if you are going to do a bike route, or you're going to take different bike paths, if you're not going to be on a main street or a way that you would normally go utilizing your car, you really want to think about what's the safest way for you. What time of day are you going? So how busy is traffic, and how many people are actually paying attention to the road? I think that's also important too, especially if you're a biker. And, you also want to think, if you are going to bike, wherever it is that your destination is, can you lock up your bike if you are a biker? Or if you decided you were going to run or walk or do something, and you're a hot, sweaty mess and you have to go into a meeting, do you have a place to go and change clothes, shower? So you really want to kind of think about all of that it seems like, well, okay, yeah, when I know this. However, first and foremost, just make sure that it's safe and you know where you're going, and then
Yep.
decide, okay, what's the risk versus benefit. You always, obviously, we know the benefits, but are there any risks for you taking that route at the time of day you need to go to wherever you're going?
All good stuff, Wendy. And I think the best way to go about that is if you're talking about commuting to a workplace, ask your coworkers that do bike in, and they'll tell you, here's the route I take. If I have to put my bike on a bus, then this is how I do it, and this is where I get off. And one of the other bits of information that you might exchange is it might be a little bit farther, but sometimes there are bike lockers. There are these businesses based on, okay, well, here, give me your bike. Here's the ticket. It costs this much. We'll keep it safe in this place. We're watching it 24/7, cameras, all the whole thing. Because if you're spending, $500-$600 on your bike, you don't want that to just someone to break your lock. But talk to your coworkers, see what they do, and see what makes sense for that particular commute, because the route, strategies, where to, what to do, what blocks to go up and down, what blocks to not go up and down, that will affect the quality of your day. So yeah, planning things out, very, very, very important.
Yep. And I mean, I think too, understanding what do you need? What's the right attire for whatever it is you're going to do? Like if you're going to go for a run, have
Yeah.
good running shoes. If you're going to do walk, have good walking shoes. If you are walking or running or doing any of this and you know it's going to be dark, whether you're leaving in the morning or coming back at night, make sure you've got reflective clothing or proper lights, something like that, so people can see you. It's not necessarily, people that are doing the activity is like, oh, I'm fine, I'm not worried about anything. Well, it's not really you, that it's the other people making sure they can see you. And I think that's one thing
Yeah.
where we have to remind people, just be smart. Nobody likes to wear the vest that makes them look like they're going out doing construction work when they're going to work out. However, it is very smart for you to do if that is the time of day that you're going to be out and about.
And for walking or biking, you have to remember, and this is something that when my kids have walked and biked to school, you got to remember there's people that are in a hurry. They may not be in the mindset to be alert for active commuters, but this is where you have to understand that people may not be in the best frame of mind, especially if they're rushing, right? Rushing to drop off their kids or rushing to pick up their kids, or they've had a bad day at work and they're not in the best moods to be on the road. So just know that the mindset may not be there. They're not experiencing the mental benefits that you are as an active commuter if they're in the car sometimes. So just be sensitive to that, and for the sake of protecting yourselves. So that's safety first. That's a great point, Wendy.
Safety first, start gradually. Don't just say, okay, oh, it's 30 minutes for me to do that. I can totally do this, and down and back the first day, you're sore, you didn't stretch, you didn't plan right, you're stressed out because now you're going to be late for a meeting. You wore a helmet, so you got the helmet mark on the front. There are a lot of things. So here's the deal. Take a deep breath, plan your route, dress appropriately, start slowly and gradually. And maybe it's like you just do it a couple times a week instead of doing it every day. Because sometimes, again, we have big ideas and then we end up kind of our ideas and our thoughts and the way that we think we're going to be able to do something doesn't always work out that way. So think about your SMART goals, make sure they're realistic. And so what days are maybe less where you have less meetings or easier days for you or something like that. Maybe those are the days that you try to become more active and commute. And then at that point, you can start adding on as you feel more comfortable with that. Time management is going to be huge with now adding on an active commute, because you also plan on traffic. And if you look at your, you plug it in your phone and it says you're going to walk, it's going to take this long. It usually takes about that long. However, there are traffic lights that maybe aren't considered. There's other things like that. Plus another really big one is weather. If you're going to be outside and it's going to, it's going to rain or something, maybe that's the day that you don't do your active commute because it's now raining outside, and maybe that's not the best thing for you to be outside before you go to work. It's totally up to you, but you just want to kind of think through what the week looks like and then plan accordingly.
And I think, again, this is random fitness here, and we're talking about move to succeed. So the biggest thing that I think we brought up a lot of, I know we brought up a lot of great points if you're a commuter by car and looking to transition to adding more active commuting days, whether it's to work, to the gym, to the grocery store. What I want to say is, just think you're now active. So the things that go with activity, and you brought it up, Wendy, just make sure you're hydrated, you've eaten. A lot of people took that commute time to drink their coffee, eat breakfast in the car. But if you don't have that car time, just know that you want to be nourished before the activities. So that was my last 2 cents. As far as, working with clients who added commuting into their week. So make sure that you're hydrated and fed, and you're not, dehydrated and hungry when you're now trying to add a 20-minute walk or a 3-mile bike ride. So add that into your consideration when looking to take on this behavior change.
Positive behavior change.
Positive behavior change. So great, I'll say great commute, Wendy. Great discussion on active commuting. So thanks, Wendy, for your insight and sharing the trials and tribulations of active commuting in Atlanta.
Remember, move to succeed, but maybe don't move to succeed using any highways around you.
That's right. So all of you listening to us here on Random Fit, thank you so much for your time and listening to what Wendy and I have to share on this episode of Random Fit. So we just ask that you like, follow, subscribe, download, share, but more importantly, comment. Let us know what you want us to talk about. We'll be sure to do what we can to get that topic on the next episode of Random Fit. So until next time, everybody, take care and be well.